Again, I want to thank all of you for being here today. I want to thank the regular 12 o'clock mass crowd who kind of opened your hearts and your arms to welcome us this day. I want to say a word of welcome to the freshman class, right, from Cathedral Preparatory High School. They had already prepared a day of recollection here, so they've been here all morning praying and growing spiritually, and you take part in this act of consecration. This is a big deal, by the way, so I'm glad you're here for that, and thank you for helping to make it a little solemn. I appreciate it. And thanks to all of you who've responded to the invitation to join with Pope Francis, who asked the whole world to join together in what he called one chorus of praise, one choral piece of music. It's like a choir, worldwide choir, all joining voices together and singing the same hymn, turning to God. You know, when you think about it, what he's asking of us is kind of amazing. When you think about time zones and all of that, our regular feasts and celebrations have a certain rhythm. So, like when the Easter Vigil begins, every hour somewhere in the world, somebody's beginning that prayer. And that just cascades through a period of time. Well, here we did something a little bit different. We all stopped in place and joined together to be one. That sense of unity is really part of the act of consecration. It's not just one person offering a prayer, but of us all gathering together. The letter to the Hebrews says, when Christ came into the world, he said, sacrifice and offering you did not desire, but a body you prepared for me. In holocaust and sin offers you took no delight. But behold, I come to do your will, O God. Today, as we celebrate the Feast of the Annunciation, we remember that moment, you know this, right? When the angel Gabriel came to Mary and announced the good news that she would be the mother of Jesus, the mother of God, and asked her to help in God's plan, to take part in God's plan. And of course, Mary said a great big resounding, yes. Behold, I am the handmaid of the Lord. Let it be done to me according to your word. When Jesus came into the world, here's what happened. God came into the world to show us God's own will, to do God's own will. God came to show us the way. God came in a miraculous way, right? The angel went to Mary, and that was kind of miraculous, and just said, you're going to be the mother of God. In a miraculous way, God stepped in. And think about it, that moment, we just heard about it in the gospel, that moment changed the course of human history forever. Jesus said, I come to do your will. And then we hear, by this will, we have been consecrated through the offering of the body of Jesus Christ once and for all. That yes, some 9 months before Jesus was even born, was a yes to everything. It was a yes to the birth in Bethlehem. It was a yes to Jesus doing God's work, proclaiming God's words, healing in God's name, being God among us. But it was even a yes to that. It was a yes to that cross. And by that yes, by that will, by Jesus coming to do God's will, we've been consecrated. There's that word that's been used today, right? Consecrated. That word consecrated means to be set apart, to be sanctified. In a sense, it means to be dedicated in a unique way to God. And so what we did today was we said this prayer, consecrating, setting aside, asking that God will transform the hearts of people and change the ways of war. We asked, as we consecrate, we turn over, we like surrender to God that land of Ukraine and Russia, asking God to bring peace there, to transform hearts. We all know there are a lot of hearts that need to be transformed, don't we? A lot of hearts toward violence. But you see, here's the thing. You can't just sit here and say, God, change that other person. Leave me alone. Change that other person. An act of consecration means that we join ourselves in that prayer. And we ask that we be consecrated. What does that mean? Well, it means that we join with Jesus. It means that we let Jesus' call take root in our hearts. That it means that we be a little like Mary and say yes to whatever God is asking of us. You see, Mary's whole life was a consecration. Her whole life was a consecration, setting her whole life aside so that God's will could be accomplished through her, so that God's great plan could be accomplished through her, so that God's great miracle could happen through her. Her whole life was a consecration. And so today, what we want to do is we want to be able to listen, to let the voice of God speak to us within, so that wherever God is leading us in life, whatever God is asking of us, we might be ready to hear it. We might have the kind of ears that are ready to hear it, that we might have the courage to be able to stand up and do what we hear ourselves we hear God asking us to do, that we might find our life's work, that we might find our life's direction by listening to God. Sacrifice and oblation you didn't desire, but a body you prepared for me. Behold, I come to do your will. That's the consecration. Now you might say, oh man, that's a little hard, isn't it? And we just did this worldwide prayer for peace. It's a nice gesture, but what difference is it going to make? That's an easy thing to think, right? Nice thought. Wouldn't it be nice? Won't it work out? Wouldn't that be great if it works? But no, we stopped with faith and we said, we really want to expect this to happen. We want God's will to reign. We want God's will to come through. And you might say, well, again, nice, but sounds kind of tough. But did you hear what Angel Gabriel said to Mary, the last words? She said, nothing is impossible for God. Let's be honest. God's already done some pretty amazing things beyond our wildest imaginations. God has already stepped into human history. God has already decided to live our human life and performed all kinds of miracles. God decided to be born of a virgin mother. God decided to give himself totally. God even surrendered himself to the most painful of deaths on a cross. And God rose from the dead. Jesus Christ rose from the dead. God came to live our life and performed all kinds of miracles. If God can do all that, nothing is impossible for God. And that needs to be our echoing prayer this day. We offered that prayer for peace. We consecrated Russia and Ukraine to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. We made the pledge ourselves to consecrate our own lives, to turn our own hearts over, and we asked that we might be transformed so that the world might be transformed. Now, it comes down to believing. Now it comes down to letting God's way be done.